What if the foods you eat every morning, the ones your doctor never warned you about, are banned in Europe because they're considered too dangerous for human health? A shocking January 2025 report from the European Food Safety Authority revealed that multiple U.S. breakfast staples contain chemicals linked to DNA damage, hormone disruption, and even increased cancer risks in older adults. Glyphosate residues in cereals, trans fats in frozen sandwiches, and acrylamide in processed waffles have all been flagged in new studies as unacceptable risks. Yet here in America, they're still advertised as fortified and heart healthy. So why does Europe throw them out while we keep feeding them to our families every single day? Are we really that different or just less protected? And for older Americans already at higher risk of heart disease and diabetes, how much longer can we afford to ignore these warnings before it's too late? This is the Downturn Report, where the truth gets personal. Today we expose 7 breakfast foods Americans eat daily, but Europe has banned them for good. Let's begin. Number 1. Lucky Charms cereal. Opening a box of Lucky Charms feels almost like hearing an old friend call your name. The soft rattle of those bright marshmallows tumbling into a bowl has been sold to us as comfort, as if childhood happiness could be poured with milk. For decades, Americans, especially those of us who count every dollar at the grocery store, have trusted that cheery little leprechaun. Joy for the kids, convenience for busy mornings, and a price tag that doesn't sting, all in one. In a world where everything feels hard, isn't it cruel how something so harmless looking can hide dangers big enough to make Europe slam its doors shut? The European Union didn't just frown at Lucky Charms. They banned it for good, and not because they dislike fun breakfasts. The real reason is titanium dioxide, E171, which is a whitening agent that scientists warn could damage DNA. Europe officially ruled it unsafe after repeated studies, and by early 2024, Lucky Charms had no chance of slipping past strict import bans. Then there are the artificial dyes, such as Red 40, Yellow 5, Blue 1, that Europe flags for cancer risks and hyperactivity in kids. Here in the United States, though, we still shovel it down like nothing's wrong, pretending that colorful sugar bits can somehow sweet-talk our bodies into ignoring toxic truths. Worse still, Consumer Reports in January 2025 tested multiple batches and found levels of BHT higher than what many health experts consider safe. BHT isn't just a friendly preservative, it's actually linked to hormone disruption and potential liver damage. General Mills claims everything meets US legal standards. But whose standards are we trusting? The same ones that allow chemicals Europe has rejected for years? And the dirt doesn't stop with chemicals. In April 2024, lawsuits in California and New York accused General Mills of causing allergic reactions and stomach illnesses in children. Reuters published accounts from factory workers describing mold near marshmallow bins, filthy machinery, and cleaning complaints ignored to keep production running. One worker admitted, "If we stopped every time it got bad, we'd never meet quotas." Doesn't that sound less like breakfast and more like gambling with people's health? Still, maybe this isn't just cold-blooded greed. The cereal business is cutthroat. Inflation squeezes margins, shareholders demand profits, and executives convince themselves that if the law allows it, it must be acceptable. Can we really picture boardrooms full of villains? Or is it just a broken system where public safety costs too much? And here's the part that stings. This isn't just one cereal. It's a symptom of a country where cheap convenience is placed above safety, where working class and retired Americans, the people who gave their lives building this nation, are left swallowing risks no one should accept. Do we really want to keep trading our health for nostalgia? There are better choices still. European-style muesli, like Bob's Red Mill Old Country style, uses plain oats, dried fruits, and nuts without toxic additives. Or you can make your own with oats, raisins, walnuts, and a drizzle of honey. It's cheaper and cleaner in the long run. But here's the question no one likes to ask. How many of us are willing to give up that sweet, familiar taste for the safety of tomorrow? Or are we all just pretending that Leprechaun's grin is worth more than our health? Maybe that's the conversation we need to have. What do you think? Number 2, Pop-Tarts. You don't bite into a Pop-Tart because you're hungry. You bite into it because it feels like a shortcut to happiness. One crinkle of that foil wrapper, and you're already tasting childhood commercials. Those shiny mornings where everything felt simple. For older Americans, especially those stretching every dollar, Pop-Tarts feel like a small treat you can still afford. A cheap way to trick life into feeling sweet for 5 minutes. But what if that sweetness isn't just fake? It's dangerous enough that Europe slammed its doors on it years ago. Titanium dioxide is the first slap in the face. The European Union banned it completely in 2022, and by 2024, enforcement became brutal. Any product containing even tiny traces couldn't cross European borders. Meanwhile, US shelves are still lined with Pop-Tarts frosted in that same whitening agent. And this isn't just about making the glaze look pretty for Instagram. A December 2024 review by the European Food Safety Authority warned that titanium dioxide may build up in organs, increasing risks of DNA damage over time. But in America, the FDA still calls it generally safe. So whose version of safe do you want to bet your health on? And don't think the lies stop with chemicals. In September 2024, Kellogg's was hit with a class action lawsuit in Illinois for misleading marketing. Lab results showed their strawberry Pop-Tarts contained less than 2% real strawberry. Leaked emails later published by the New York Times in October revealed executives flat out discussing how bright colors drive impulse buys in low-income neighborhoods, all while admitting internally that there's barely any fruit in the filling. Does that sound like the honest family breakfast they show in commercials? Or more like a hustle designed to milk struggling families? The factory conditions are just as unsettling. An OSHA report released in early 2025 exposed horrifying working conditions at a Michigan Pop-Tarts plant. Workers, many of them immigrants hired on temporary contracts, were forced to endure toxic fumes from artificial flavoring agents and suffocating heat for hours. Complaints about respiratory problems were allegedly met with threats of termination. One former worker told The Guardian, "You hold your breath near the vats because the fumes make you dizzy. But if you stop, you're replaced." Imagine that. Someone gasping for air just so your toaster can pop out something shiny and pink. Still, blaming only Kellogg's feels too easy. The market for cheap breakfast pastries is a battlefield. Competitors slash prices, shareholders demand growth, and corporations know their main buyers are working-class families and retirees who can't afford fancy alternatives. Maybe executives convince themselves this is acceptable because they're just meeting demand. But what they're really meeting is a system that rewards cutting corners, one where your health is the price of their next quarterly report. You don't have to play along. If you love fruit pastries, safer options exist. Whole grain hand pies with real fruit fillings are popping up at stores like Whole Foods and Sprouts. Though they cost a little more. A cheaper fix? Make your own. Frozen berries, a spoon of honey, and pre-made pie crust can turn into freezer-friendly breakfast pastries you can reheat in minutes. And when buying, check for titanium dioxide, red 40, and vague labels like natural flavor. Real food doesn't need to hide behind mystery terms. But maybe the ugliest truth isn't what's in Pop-Tarts, it's why we keep buying them. Are we so desperate for cheap, sugary comfort that we've stopped asking why companies think it's okay to feed us lies in shiny wrappers? Or worse, have we quietly accepted that our health just isn't worth more than $1 breakfast pastry? Maybe that's the real conversation we need to start. Number 3. Jimmy Dean breakfast sausage. The crackle of Jimmy Dean's sausage hitting a hot pan feels like a small comfort on a cold morning, Doesn't it? For generations, it has been the go-to breakfast for America's working class because it's cheap, filling, and quick. It's kind of greasy satisfaction you can slap onto a biscuit before rushing out the door for a 12-hour shift. Older Americans trust it even more because it carries a certain nostalgia that whispers, "This is real food the way it used to be." Ads keep feeding that image. Rosy-cheeked farmers in golden fields, promising honest, country-style goodness with every bite. But Europe has already exposed the cruel punchline. What's hiding inside that sausage and how it's made might be the ugliest truth sitting in your freezer. In early 2024, European regulators once again stood firm on their ban against American pork containing ractopamine, a growth drug outlawed in more than 160 countries. Yet here in the United States, it's still perfectly legal. And early in 2025, Consumer Voice tested multiple sausage brands, including Jimmy Dean, and detected traces of ractopamine in products sold at major retailers. Sure, US agencies say the levels are safe, but Europe's top scientists have called even small amounts risky, warning of possible heart strain and nervous system effects, especially in older or sensitive people. So why is Europe throwing it out while we fry it up for breakfast like nothing's wrong? And chemicals aren't the only nightmare. In March 2024, an undercover investigation by an animal welfare group released stomach-turning footage from a Smithfield slaughterhouse, since Smithfield being the main pork supplier for Jimmy Dean. The images, later reported by Reuters and The Guardian, showed pigs beaten, crammed into filthy pens, and left to suffer slow deaths. Workers were caught on camera tossing carcasses with oozing abscesses straight onto processing lines. A Nebraska labor case revealed even more. Former employees testified managers pushed speed over safety, processing hundreds of animals per hour while skipping cleaning steps. One worker described wiping a conveyor belt with the same filthy rag all shift because stopping to clean would slow production and risk everyone's bonuses. The horror doesn't stop with the animals. In late 2024, slaughterhouse workers filed a lawsuit accusing Smithfield of ignoring dangerous working conditions. Repeated injuries, unregulated line speeds, and retaliation against whistleblowers painted a picture of human beings treated like disposable tools. And when people are pushed to exhaustion just to keep production lines running, can anyone honestly believe your breakfast is handled with care? Still, it's not all pure malice. The pork industry is being crushed under its own weight. Feed costs have skyrocketed, worker shortages leave plants understaffed, and corporations demand cheap prices to stay competitive. Maybe the people running these plants feel trapped. Maybe no one in that system has real choices anymore. But does that excuse looking the other way while basic safety and basic decency are sacrificed? Or are we all guilty because we choose the cheaper sausage, pretending we don't know how it's made? But you don't have to settle for this. Look for local farm-sourced turkey or pork sausage from smaller butchers. Many avoid growth drugs to stay eligible for EU exports. If that's out of budget, making your own is easier than you think. Ground turkey or pork mixed with sage, thyme, and a little salt tastes just as good and freezes for weeks. Farmers markets often let you ask exactly how the animals were raised. And here's a small but powerful rule. Avoid products with vague terms like natural pork flavoring or ingredient lists longer than 5 items. But maybe this isn't just about sausage, but the price we're willing to pay, money, time, or conscience for convenience. If Europe refuses to accept food made under these conditions, what does it say about us that we keep buying it? Would you spend a few extra minutes cooking or a few extra dollars to avoid feeding into this cycle? Or have we all gotten so used to cheap comfort that we've stopped asking what it really costs? Number 4. Eggo waffles. There's something comforting about slipping an Eggo waffle into the toaster. Those crisp golden squares feel like a warm handshake on a cold morning. Also a cheap promise of happiness for older Americans who grew up hearing "Lego my ego" jingles on television. It's marketed as a harmless convenience, as if it's a simple hug for your taste buds. For working families and retirees living on tight budgets, Eggo seems like an affordable little luxury in a world where luxuries are rare. But Europe took one look at that smiling yellow box and said no, flat out banning it. The truth behind those waffles isn't just unappetizing. It's enough to make you wonder what else we've been letting slide. In January of 2025, a joint investigation by the European Food Safety Authority and Germany's Federal Institute for Risk Assessment finally confirmed what food scientists had been warning for years. Frozen waffles, especially highly processed brands like Eggo, carry dangerously high levels of acrylamide, a chemical created during high-temperature cooking. Acrylamide isn't some harmless kitchen byproduct. It's a proven carcinogen. European lab tests found acrylamide levels in Eggo waffles exceeding the EU's strict safety limits by more than double, triggering an immediate ban. Meanwhile, here in the United States, the FDA still shrugs it off as unavoidable, allowing far higher levels to slide under the radar. But do we really want cancer risks waved away as unavoidable just because it's cheaper to keep things the same? And that's not even the dirtiest part of the story. In May 2024, Kellogg's faced public outrage after an FDA inspection report, later obtained by Bloomberg, detailed disgusting sanitation failures at one of its main Eggo plants in Tennessee. Workers described cockroaches near mixing stations, condensation dripping from ceiling pipes directly into batter vats, and burnt residue piling up on waffle irons. That residue doesn't just taste bad, it spikes acrylamide even higher. But instead of shutting down to clean, managers allegedly told workers to scrape and keep running so shipping deadlines wouldn't be missed. The human cost is just as grim. Labor rights groups reported in late 2024 that temporary workers at Eggo plants were pushed to grind through 12-hour shifts with minimal breaks. Employees said contamination checks were treated like a waste of time. One worker told The Guardian, "If you stop to clean, you get written up." They'd rather risk a bad batch than miss a shipment. It's hard not to laugh bitterly at those ads showing happy families gathered around spotless breakfast tables when the people making those waffles are forced to cut every corner to keep them cheap. To be fair, you can almost understand Kellogg's desperation. The frozen breakfast market is vicious, with store-brand waffles cutting prices so low that big companies feel trapped. Maybe Kellogg's executives tell themselves it's okay because US law doesn't strictly force them to change. Maybe they feel stuck in a system where rushing and cutting costs feels like the only way to survive. But should that burden fall on the people buying these products, the older Americans and working-class families who can least afford to gamble with their health? You don't have to give up waffles entirely to stay safe. European-style alternatives are made with lower temperature baking methods and simpler ingredients, reducing acrylamide risks. Check out local bakery-made frozen waffles. Many small bakeries sell them at farmers markets and specialty stores. Or make your own with whole grain flour, eggs, and a bit of real Butterfreeze well and toast quickly. And here's a simple rule. If the ingredient list looks like a science project, put it back on the shelf. The real issue isn't just Eggo waffles. It's about what we've all gotten used to. Factories that push exhausted workers to ignore contamination, chemicals shrugged off because everyone uses them, and corporations betting that most of us won't ask questions. Europe decided it wasn't worth the risk. So why do we keep saying Lego when what we're really letting go of might be our own health? Would you trade a few extra minutes in the kitchen for peace of mind? Or are we too hooked on convenience to care what's hiding under that golden toast? Number 5, Frosted Flakes. You can almost hear Tony the Tiger shouting, "They're grit!" in that booming voice, can't you? His grin feels personal, like he's cheering you on while you pour those golden flakes into a bowl. For many of us, Frosted Flakes isn't just cereal. It's the taste of childhood, the crunch we grew up with during Saturday morning cartoons. And for older Americans today, it's still a cheap and easy breakfast, one that feels like a sensible choice because the box screams about added vitamins and energy for the day. But Europe isn't buying the act. In fact, they've slammed the door shut on it, and the reasons are enough to make you stare at your breakfast with suspicion. The first red flag is glyphosate, the same weed killer that's been at the center of multiple cancer lawsuits in the United States. In January of 2025, the European Food Safety Authority reported that imported cereals, including Frosted Flakes, contain glyphosate residues above what Europe considers safe. Since late 2024, the EU has enforced near-zero tolerance, citing new research linking even low-level exposure to hormone disruption in older adults. Meanwhile, here in the US, we're told it's perfectly fine. But here's the gut punch. Independent lab testing published by Consumer Wellness in November 2024 found glyphosate levels in Frosted Flakes up to 3 times higher than Europe's safety threshold. They call it fortified cereal, but no one talks about what it's really fortified with. And the marketing? It's not just misleading, it's manipulative. In August 2024, Kellogg's quietly settled a lawsuit in California over false, heart-healthy claims. Leaked internal emails revealed exactly how cynical the strategy was. Executives deliberately targeted low-income communities, flooding them with ads promising energy for active mornings, despite knowing the cereal is more than 40% sugar by weight. One marketing director even joked, "Kids bounce off the walls and parents think that's energy. Works every time." That's not just advertising. That's playing with the trust of families who can least afford to be tricked. If that doesn't kill your appetite, the factory conditions might. In late 2024, a whistleblower at a Kellogg's plant in Ohio revealed that grain shipments arrived contaminated with insects. Instead of discarding them, workers were ordered to heat, treat, and blend the batches because throwing them out would cost too much and delay production. Photos submitted to investigators showed beetle fragments mixed with corn dust near storage silos. The FDA's December inspection confirmed failure to maintain adequate pest control, but issued only a warning letter. No recalls, no headlines, just business as usual. Imagine feeding your family something you wouldn't even feed your dog if you saw how it was made. Yet part of you almost feels sorry for the people behind the brand. The cereal business is a brutal war zone. Grain prices keep climbing, competitors slash corners to stay cheap, and shareholders scream for higher profits every quarter. Maybe Kellogg's isn't purely evil. Maybe it's just another company being crushed by the same machine it feeds. But that doesn't change the truth. When corporations bend under pressure, we're the ones who pay the price, not the shareholders. And for older Americans already dealing with health concerns, that price is higher than most can afford. You don't need to swear off cereal entirely. Brands like 1 Degree and Nature's Path use organic, certified glyphosate-free grains. If that feels expensive, try making your own mix. Plain toasted oats, a dusting of cinnamon, and a handful of raisins deliver the same satisfying crunch without the chemical baggage. And next time you see a heart-healthy label, check the sugar content before believing it. But maybe the real question isn't about cereal at all. Maybe it's about why we keep letting a cartoon tiger make health decisions for us. When do we stop laughing at the slogan and realize we're the ones being played for fools? Europe took a stand. So why are we still letting that striped mascot smile while we eat whatever he tells us to? Number 6. Dunkin' Donuts breakfast sandwiches. That warm Dunkin' sandwich feels like a tiny victory on a cold morning, doesn't it? Cheap, fast, and filling. It's the kind of comfort older Americans on tight budgets reach for when life feels unforgiving. But Europe doesn't see comfort in it. It sees danger, banning these sandwiches outright because What's inside isn't just food, it's a health risk wrapped in paper. The biggest culprit? Trans fats. Europe banned partially hydrogenated oils years ago, and by late 2024, it tightened rules against imported fast foods after tests found Dunkin's frozen sandwiches packed with industrial trans fats. The European Heart Journal warned in December 2024 that even small amounts raise heart attack risks for older adults, the very people buying them most. Yet Dunkin' still uses these fats in frozen egg and sausage patties to extend shelf life. And behind the scenes, it's worse. A February 2025 Labor Watch USA report exposed horrific conditions at a major egg supplier. Hens crammed into filthy cages, dead birds rotting in corners, and workers forced to pack cracked, dirty eggs or risk being fired. Bloomberg also reported immigrant workers at a Midwest sausage plant burned handling hot oil during 12-hour shifts, some allegedly threatened with deportation if they complained. You don't have to give up breakfast sandwiches, just rethink them. Cage-free eggs, real cheese, and a whole-grain muffin at home cost less over time. Farmers markets can tell you how eggs are raised. But the real question? Are we too used to cheap convenience to ask why suffering is part of the recipe? Number 7. Yoplait flavored yogurt. Yogurt is supposed to be healthy, right? That's the illusion Yoplait sells. Bright cups, smiling. Fruit and ads showing happy women staying fit with every spoonful. For older Americans, it feels like a guilt-free treat, cheap, easy, and healthier sounding than dessert. But in Europe, these same cups are closer to candy than health food, and some are banned outright. The sugar alone is enough to make you pause. A French consumer agency revealed in October 2024 that certain U.S. Yoplait flavors had more sugar per serving than a can of Coca-Cola. That finding pushed the EU to classify ultra-sweetened yogurts as desserts, blocking them from health food aisles. And in December 2024, the European Food Safety Authority confirmed Yoplait still uses artificial dyes like Red 40 and Yellow 6, both restricted in Europe for links to hyperactivity and possible cancer risks. US labels? They call them artificial colors, like it's no big deal. The honesty problem runs deeper. In January 2025, a New York class action lawsuit accused Yoplait's parent company of false advertising after lab tests showed some flavors contained less than 1% real fruit. Internal emails leaked to the Washington Post showed executives dismissing reformulation, claiming buyers care about taste and price, not purity. Even the dairy supply chain tells a grim story. A late 2024 whistleblower report described cows standing in filthy barns, milked while covered in sores to keep production running. The solution? Enhanced pasteurization to hide poor milk quality. You don't need to give up yogurt, just pick smarter. Plain European-style yogurts like Siggi's or Phage, with honey or fresh fruit, give real nutrition without the chemicals. But maybe the real question is, why are we still pretending cheap sugar in a cup is healthy when Europe refuses to play along? Maybe this isn't just about breakfast. It's about how much we're willing to trust a system that treats our health like an afterthought. Europe has drawn the line, refusing to compromise safety for cheap convenience. But here in America, we keep swallowing what we're told is good enough. So ask yourself, how much longer will we trade our health for comfort? How many more mornings will we look the other way? Share your thoughts below, and if you believe we deserve better, join us. Subscribe to this channel, because the more we speak up, the harder it gets for them to ignore us.
Thanks a lot for sticking with us to the very end. If you found this video useful, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe so you won't miss any daily uploads. And now go ahead and explore some of our top recommended videos popping up on your screen. Goodbye, and see you in the next one.